Okay. Let's talk about your mom and dad. Did they have brothers and sisters?
Oh, God.
Do you know all their brothers and
Yeah.
sisters? All right.
My mother came, and my father also, from a large family. My grandfather was Francesco Abate, and he was a master mason. Came from Lavrenzano, Italy. He had made several trips back and forth to the United States. And every time he'd come, he'd earn some money and go back to Italy with and pay for a dowry for his sisters. Anyway, he eventually married my grandmother Rosina. I'm trying to think of her last name, but I can't pull it out right now. It'll come. Romeo.
Rosita Romeo?
Romeo was her maiden name.
Wow.
And they came to America. The oldest child they had was my Aunt Rochtel. Now, my Aunt Rochtel was much older than the rest of the family. And she had married a tailor and emigrated to New York. And I never knew her. She died long before I was born. Anyway, the next child was my Uncle Nick. My Uncle Nick was also a master mason, just took the trade after his father. And after my Uncle Nick was my Aunt Grace. Grace, her married name is Bartholomew. She married my Uncle Jimmy. After that was my mother. And this is interesting. That's why I think my mother was older than she always claimed to be, because my Aunt Grace and my mother were only 2 years apart. And my Aunt Grace was probably born in about 1896 or so, and I think my mother was born in 1898, a year before my father. Anyway, she never claimed to be that. Anyway, after my Aunt Grace,
Do you remember all these? Oh my God, I don't remember.
after my Aunt Grace was my Uncle Tony. Uncle Tony. He was really the tall one. In fact, we have his wedding picture in our photographs. And he died. He died early during the influenza epidemic of the 1819 era. As a matter of fact, when he died, his wife was pregnant with their first child. So that was my cousin Marie. His wife's name was Antoinette. Then after my uncle Tony, I believe was Aunt Susie.
I remember her.
Aunt Susie she was the last one born in Italy. She married my Uncle Frank Calea. They had no children. And then after that, the first ones born in New Rochelle, New York, after my grandmother arrived back into the United States, were my twin uncles, Uncle Dominic James Abbott and George Anthony Abbott. Twin uncles. Uncle Dick was the, believe it or not, was the oldest one, rather than Uncle George.
So how many children was that?
Oh, you figure it out.
I lost count.
Well, there was Rochtel, there was Nick, Grace, Millie, my mother, Mildred, Uncle Tony, Susie, and the twins.
8.
8.
Oh.
Okay, now my father.
Your father.
Now we got into a long, big family.
Salvatore.
My father and my grandmother were married in Sicily. My father, they lived in a little seacoast town of Bundello, Sicily, which was a seacoast town several miles away from the main city of Palermo. Well, at that time, when my father was born in 1899, it was a little fishing village. Now, there was a historic article in years ago, National Geographic on Palermo and Sicily, and Bundello is now a resort town of rich people for the city of Palermo. So my father came to this country.
Well, how
when
many brothers and sisters?
All right, brothers and sisters. So the oldest one was Grace. Now Grace died when she was 6 years old, so we never knew Grace. Next one was my Uncle Vincent. My Uncle Vincent, after Vincent was my Uncle Tony, who was 2 years older than my father, who was born next, Salvatore. Now, he was named after my grandmother's brother, Salvatore,
What do you
who was living who lived in Astoria, I think, Long Island. After Salvatore was, I believe, was Nick. Then there was Angelo. In between there somewhere was my Aunt Anna. I'm not sure where she fit into the picture, but there were only two girls. Oh, wait a minute. Before that, I missed up. After Uncle Vincent, or even before Uncle Vincent, was my Aunt Chancy, my Aunt Virginia. Okay, and let's see, then somewhere in there was my Aunt Anna. So there were two girls in the family, three if you count Grace, who died. And after Angelo was Charlie, and then George. So I think that might have been 12.
We gotta go.
12. Okay.
Come on, honey, we gotta go.